Mm.
So, but yeah. So today's today's combination is a fascinating
It's an interesting one because today we're doing Kanye West, Runaway, and Taylor Swift's Wildest Dreams. Um, I mean, I can't deny that I originally put these together or I wanted to do an episode with the two of them specifically because they have, as we all know, personal history too.
one.
And they are both cultural forces, I guess you could say, outside of their music too. And their names stir up emotions beyond just the music. So
Yeah,
it'll be an interesting conversation
yeah.
for sure. I think anyway. I've looked forward to doing this one.
You know, my first thought was that I haven't listened to any Taylor Swift in a long time. You know,
Hmm.
she is she is at times problematic for the Black community.
Yeah.
She is one of the people who were mentioned when cultural appropriation through music, uh, through depiction of videos and lyrics used
Okay.
is brought up.
Okay.
So
That was the last thing I wrote on my piece of paper. Is I I, I don't want to be quite so reductive as saying why do black people hate Taylor Swift, but like it's but that's an interesting. I mean, and it's an important thing to talk about.
yeah,
Um,
it has nothing to do with Kanye. I'll tell you that.
okay,
It's not a Kanye thing. I think too often, see, this is where things get generalized and don't get unpacked.
that's why we need to talk about it.
Right. It's not, no, it has nothing to do with Kanye, who, quite frankly, a lot of Black people don't like, especially right now.
Oh yeah.
In particular, right now, it's more about the cultural appropriation and it being, she's one of the last people that I feel like the music video really worked to her benefit.
Hmm.
And those depictions are probably more appropriating than the music. The music actually isn't that bad,
No. I mean, she
but
started as a country singer, basically, like back
right,
when she was
that,
like a teenager. But
that's part of the problem. The same way Bruno Mars kind of started off singing on a stool, like with a guitar, like
mhm.
old school Marvin Gaye or like Frank Sinatra style, and then popped up with a Versace shirt, a
Yeah,
gold chain, talking about 24 karat. It's like, well, you're Filipino. I didn't know that y'all wore Versace and gold chains and drove Cadillacs. And I mean, and to be quite frankly, I mean, Andrew, you know this. It's like, well, I was just with a woman who was Filipino, or at least
mhm.
half Filipino, and it's like, no, that's really not part of the culture culturally. It was explained to me. And so, you have people like Bruno and Taylor Swift. Well, the fact that they get really isn't about something that they've done. It's like, what they've depicted or what they have allowed their handlers around them
Yeah,
to let it be depicted, because I don't even want to say when an artist gets to a certain stature, and even with doing according to hip hop, I find out certain things about artists, and it's like, oh, well, if they're doing that for money and for fame and paying for this, that, and the other, there's no telling what somebody who's handling like a Taylor Swift or, is being told or said to do and at what price, you know?
yep,
So,
yeah,
not all her fault, but it's like, you're caught in the crossfire of, you know,
yeah,
trying to be cool without getting the cosign from the community person.
yeah. I see what you're saying. Yeah. Um, I'll tell you a little bit, like about her. In my experience, anyway.
Well, I want you to do that because it's like I'm saying all that socially and culturally.
Right.
The music is actually pretty good.
Yeah, exactly. That's the
But bro,
thing. Like, and that's the important part of the conversation because you could say the exact same thing about Kanye West too. Like, the music is actually pretty good. Culturally, is there's
problem.
problems, right? So, but if you just listen to the songs, then like these are pretty good songs. I came to Taylor Swift a couple ways. One, there's a generation of girls that I taught that they are probably about Taylor Swift's age, honestly, now, like probably 30-ish years old now,
30 to 30.
who were like blindly obsessed with her. And I don't mean that as a bad thing. I'm just saying like that was the person that hit them like right in the heart of their teenagerhood, like Outcast did for you. And does it make sense? Like they were Taylor Swift was that person for them.
I get it.
Um, and so I was introduced to the hysteria, I guess you would say, more than her music. And the narrative around her then was that she performed that time on Saturday Night Live and bombed. Like, and she like everybody was saying she can't really sing and blah blah blah. Okay, so
Okay, some of that.
that was a narrative around that time. This is early 2008, 9, 10. I mean that
Yeah,
kind of time.
yeah.
Um, I came to her music though through another artist named Ryan Adams. I don't know if you know who Ryan Adams is. He's like a singer songwriter.
Not Brian Adams,
Not
but Ryan.
Brian, no, no, Ryan Ryan Adams.
No.
He is not like super famous like outside of the singer songwriter world, but he is like super 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 prolific, like one of those writing several albums, could write several albums a year, kind of guy. And
Mm.
but anyway, he did a cover album of Taylor Swift's 1989, where he re-recorded all of her songs and with her blessing, and she was really excited about it or whatever. And so they're new, not new versions of them, but more. He's kind of in the country indie rock kind of world.
Mm.
Um, so that he took songs, the 1989 songs, which are Wildest Dreams and Bad Blood and Blank Space and Out of the Woods, and they're more. Um, they've got more. They're more produced, more heavily produced, I guess you could say,
Mhm.
on the Taylor Swift album, and he like stripped them back to not just him and the guitar, but like pretty far back. And I listened to that because I was a Ryan Adams fan, and it's like actually these songs are not bad. Like, so it took, I know this is like an old white guy thing to say, but it took listening to another old white guy play the songs to like register that she was actually a pretty good songwriter. Um,
It probably
and
it
go ahead.
probably wasn't that though. It was probably the deconstruction of it that made you realize it. If anybody would have done the deconstruction of it,
Yeah,
I have one of Prince's books that talks about, the piano and the mic concert, which is the last concert he did, coincidentally enough, down here in Atlanta. Which coincidentally enough, I had tickets to, and my boss wouldn't let me off. Never forgiving that guy. Never. Um, he talks in the book about how, because he couldn't perform and do some of the things like moving around and guitar
hmm
and stuff wise, that just him singing and playing the piano to his music and having to break all those songs down made him realize even how, and it's Prince talking, so it's a little bit genius, a little bit
sure.
arrogant, but it's like even Prince's is like, man, these songs are really beautiful. It's like, well, fuck yeah.
Well, and that would not play very well with a lot of people, but like Prince can say that, like because the songs are
Right,
beautiful.
right. But to say that it's like, well, when you deconstruct something in music, is really when you can find out if it's really quality or not a lot
hmm
of the time. No
they
matter who.
say all the time, and I actually wrote this on my on this paper that I prefer. I mean, I can listen to the Taylor Swift songs, and I have a 13-year-old daughter, and so I have that kind of music playing in my house sometimes. But the you can find YouTube videos of just her with a guitar playing it, just like Prince is saying with the piano, with one piano, like or just her standing with the. It's not in a coffee house; it's in a theater usually, but like just her and the guitar playing the songs, and I prefer those versions of the songs so much more, and they all hold up, and
Mhm.
and that's how. And they always say like if you can play a song with just a guitar and a mic, or just a piano and a mic, then that's how you know they're good songs. If they don't need, they can have bells and whistles, but if they don't need them, then that's how you know. And she's an
Well, yeah,
excellent songwriter, I think.
she is, and I'm going to tell you how I found out she was an excellent songwriter. It's like, well, you have a 13-year-old. It's like, well, I have a 15-year-old who's going to be 16 early next year,
Hmm.
and she actually, it is through her listening to Taylor Swift and Bruno Mars. Like, my daughter has none of like my musical taste.
Okay.
Her
Mine
taste
doesn't
is,
either.
yeah, her taste is so wide and eclectic. It is startling to me. It's
Yeah.
like she's like, she comes from a musical family in a lot of
Right.
ways. Like, we play instruments, write music, have performed music. We've got DJs, producers, MCs,
Yep.
clarinet players, saxophone players, guitar players. My
Right.
oldest classically trained on the piano. Music is in
Hmm.
our but like this one right here, like popped up listening to Taylor Swift and Bruno Mars at 10, and I'm like, what the fuck is that? I'm like, this is Enter the Wu Tang, and she's like, no, take that back. And so I found out about Taylor Swift, and actually her music via my daughter because
Hmm.
it's like, well, why does she like her? And it was like that's when I realized she was a good songwriter. I'm like, well, this is still my child. I was like, because much like her father, she is listening to these words and hearing the songwriting. It's like, oh, the songwriting is great,
Yeah.
and
She
that's who
she
her dad.
yeah.
You know, it's just a different ear, a more eclectic, range of
Yeah.
ear for a young black woman. So I know about Taylor Swift, through my daughter too, actually, and her
Mhm.
fandom briefly for it. And I think me talking to her about some of the appropriation is what kind of killed some of the fandom when I started unpacking some things and doing some research. Because much
Mhm.
like her father, Asaya loves everybody, but she's pro black.
Yeah, sure, of course.
Yeah. So
Yeah, Taylor Swift is not like Joni Mitchell level songwriter, obviously, but almost
no,
nobody is. But she is way more lyrically gifted than a lot of people who aren't her like mega fans give her credit for. Like she's a
yeah,
lot more talented than that.
like she's a high level songwriter.
Hmm.
She's not like in that Joni Mitchell, like Paul McCartney, Stevie Wonder,
Yeah.
Prince. Like she's not in that room, but she's a hell of
No.
a yeah,
Yeah.
she's a hell of a song.
Yeah. So do you want to like talk about the song a little bit? Do you want to the songs?
Actually, I really like the song. The song is dope as fuck, Andrew.
It really is, right?
The song is dope. Like, I
Like,
mean, I don't care. Like, this is what I mean, and this is where you get conflicted about things, and you have to make choices
hmm
in life. Because as I'm listening to this record over and over again, you know what I mean? I'm like, I'm like, that's the power of music. No matter how much I don't want to like her because of the things that she's portrayed and depicted, I
yeah,
cannot help but to enjoy the
it's a good
song
song. It's a good
because
song.
it's a good song and what music is really supposed to do at the end of the day, which is why we're doing this, is to what? Bring things and people and places and experiences together. And it's like, it just makes me upset a little bit. So it's like, damn it, don't be a cultural appropriator because it makes
Yeah, you
no
don't have to do that. You don't
right,
have
right.
to.
You don't have to do that. And I want to listen to your music and support you because I actually know that you're talented and gifted because my daughter used to listen to you.
Hmm.
It's like, I
Yeah.
know you're gifted. And it's like, at that point, it's like, well, if father can say that you're gifted and father is from, like inner city, east side Atlanta and west side Charlotte. And if, daughter
Mm.
is from suburban, Ville,
Yeah.
Atlanta area where it is, 80%, 85% Anglo-Saxon,
Mhm.
Caucasian up here. And we're both like, man, you're fucking dope. That means
Yeah.
you don't need to appropriate anything.
No, it's not. And
That's
that's the frustrating
yeah,
thing. Like it's
that's a
not. It's
25-year gap. Like I had my daughter. My daughter was born when I was 25. It's a 25-year gap. It's like if my kid knows that you're dope, and you know that, and I know that you're dope, you don't have to appropriate shit. You can just be Taylor Swift,
you can just stand up there with the guitar and play. Like it doesn't have to be a
right?
thing. Like yeah,
And I think that's the pressure of the music business, and that's why it's like, well, I don't know how much blame she deserves because
yeah.
if you actually just look at the gifts, it's like, well, can she sing? It's like, yeah, she can. Not a wonderful singer, but she can sing.
She can
Like,
sing well enough. Yeah.
like there have been worse people that have sold as many records. As
Bob
far as
Dylan, for example, is not a great singer, right? I mean, he's a great songwriter, but not his vocal whatever is not.
right,
And there's lots of examples of that. Like,
she's an above average songwriter. Like she's not an A. She's like a B minus, B plus, B. Like
yeah,
she's not an average songwriter. She's an above
she's a good
average.
one. Yeah.
Yeah, she's a really good songwriter. It's like you can play an instrument.
Hmm.
It's like, oh no, you don't need to appropriate anything at that point. It's like when you can songwrite, you can play an instrument, you can sing. It's like you can do you. And so I think this is where we can see some of the pressures. You know, I think one of the things that we talk about on Court and Hip Hop, and I've talked with you about here,
Hmm.
is the pressures that artists feel from their circles.
Hmm.
I think this is a music industry pressure from her. That's why we're seeing the appropriation because when you strip it down or deconstruct it, says as Ryan Adams did, you're like, oh no, this shit's good.
Yeah. And
You
all the
know,
songs on that record are good, not just this one, but this is
I
my
went back
favorite
and
one. But like,
about that album because you want to know what? I think that album might have been the one after it. But I can remember hearing these songs before, like a long time ago.
Hmm.
Not too long ago, but yeah.
Right. I mean, the songs I named off, "Bad Blood" and "Blank Space" and "Out of the Woods" and
I remember Blank.
Shake It Off" is on that album. The
So
the
Shake It Off have a video. That might have been one of the videos that was
Yeah,
a problem.
that one is, and this one, the Wildest Dreams one's the one where she's going like on the African safari thing.
Yeah,
Uh,
see, those were the problems.
but the Shake It Off
Shake It Off, the one with all the
is at least winking at Madonna and winking at the Beyonce videos and stuff like that. It's
right. Okay, so
That's the
so
player's going to play, right?
yep,
And the
that's the
haters
one.
going to hate. Yeah, that's Shake It Off.
So that's the problem. That video is the biggest problem of them
Okay.
because it's almost like, okay, so you're saying wink wink in
Yeah.
the black community not funny at all or in the slightest. And I want you to
Yeah.
understand it like it's taking direct shot at Beyonce, who is like she's more untouchable than like Diana Ross was in her heyday.
Yeah.
Like,
And
she's super.
this album came after the whole thing where she won the MTV award instead of Beyonce. Which is the first point at which Taylor Swift and Kanye are connected, like in the popular culture.
So this is
Um,
all. So it's all looking bad, and it's almost like some stupid ass white people from upstairs tell you to do this stupid thing, little white girl.
like,
That's how it came off.
and you ought to know better. Like,
Right. And then it's like when you look at the video, it's like, why do you have to use these images to get this point across? There's so many other creative ways and spaces to take
yeah,
this video, and that's where the appropriation comes
yeah,
in. It's like, oh, well, you didn't really think about it or creatively try or imagine. You just took a piece of our culture
hmm,
and inserted it conveniently into your video, and boom, it's blowing up.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
But in fairness to her, it's like, well, I said the same thing about Bruno Mars and got 50 times more of the pushback because he's Filipino as opposed to her being white.
yeah,
So as blacks in this hip hop and R&B sphere have not totally unpacked how we're going to audit these situations either.
yeah. Well, Bruno Mars can pass. Like, if you didn't know that he wasn't black, you're like, I mean, obviously you know, but like it's not and more easily than Taylor Swift can, for example.
Like think about this. Like Bruno Mars has a Grammy for 24 Karat, the album, and Prince doesn't have one for Purple Rain. Now something's wrong.
That's unacceptable. Like
It's
that's wrong and
unacceptable.
bad.
It's unacceptable inherently when something like that happens musically.
Hmm.
And no, like just can't have it. You just can't have it. Like that's one of those things that's gonna make people tip over and burn the bridge. It's like, well, you want to know what? Fuck it. Don't let anybody over here. Burn the bridge. You feel me?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of those things. And so the Taylor Swift thing is comparable because of how Beyonce is viewed, even though like she's not in Prince's stratosphere either. But you get what
No.
I'm saying?
There's only like three people in Prince's stratosphere like this.
Right. As far as solo artists, yes.
Right.
Like, but no, but like when you have a contingency of a following like Beyonce does, when you have a contingency of a following like Prince does that see these things occur, it's like, what? You know,
Yeah.
and I'm the biggest Beyonce fan. How about this? I think Taylor Swift is probably just as good as a songwriter as Beyonce, if not better.
Okay.
But she's definitely not the performer entertainer.
No, definitely not. The
And
Beyonce's on a whole other level from almost everybody as a performer and entertainer.
and vocally, I would say Beyonce is way better too.
Hmm. That's not within question. Even Taylor Swift would say Beyonce sings better. Like that's not.
Right, right. So it looks like you stole Beyonce's shit to compete at that point.
Hmm.
Right. Like I don't have
And you're
her
getting paid more money to do it because you're white. Is the problem, right?
all those things.
Yeah.
I mean, the bottom line is always going to be the money because it's like, you know, the money actually is like, you know, the variable in the equation. It's like where the X is. It's like, well, you know what that X is and what it represents because it tells you at the top of the equation. Well, X equals 2 if you're white and -2 if you're black.
Shit. Yeah. I never thought about it like that, but yeah.
You know, that's how we know the money
Mm-hmm.
looks. It's the literal variable in the equation where the money's being added up. +2 for you, -2 for me. Got it. Good. You know,
I mean, it's the same as Elvis and Little Richard. I mean, it's the same.
yeah, it's the same thing. Even the gap is closer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the gap is closer, but the gap is only closer, you know, quite frankly, because of complaints. And I mean, and even forge into Title IX with Billie Jean King, about why some of the disparities between men and women have only closed. I mean, it's taking like civil rights and Title IX for the gap to be
And
closed.
for
And people,
Serena and Venus Williams to say we're not playing
right, Prince the
unless.
right name on his face and say fuck Warner Brothers like out loud. Warner Brothers is the mafia. You don't do that. Right? For real. Like, I mean, there are those of us who believe that there are three black men whose catalogs are arguably the three greatest catalogs of the last 40, 50 years. And they don't belong to them for various reasons. And that would be Prince, Michael Jackson, and R. Kelly. Now, in the case of R. Kelly, Andrew, he's just a nasty motherfucker.
Yeah, you can't justify any of that.
Well, here's what I'm saying. When you make yourself available to the powers that be to come and snatch you up, well, that's exactly what you're going to have. But there are those of us that just feel like it's like, oh, I don't like how Michael Jackson and Prince died, just off the strength of how much of their publishing and catalog they owned at the end and we're starting to get back. This is what people understand when you own your shit. Like, if you don't own it, after 35 years, it comes back and you have the chance to buy it. So Prince and Michael Jackson were getting to points about to be in ownership of like all their shit. Like they already owned a lot, but Prince was like about to own Purple Rain. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like publishing wise, because in 35 years it goes back up. Wasn't nobody about to outbid Prince for Purple Rain? Somebody with some money to outbid Prince for Purple Rain? Because I'm pretty certain he can bet the farm on that and go get that right back however he feels. You get what I'm saying?
Yep.
And so when these things happen and these people pass away, the way that they pass away,
ODs and
overdose, fentanyl, things of that nature. It just looks like it's such a shaky ground. Now, tell me the large white artists that's shrouded in that type of death conspiracy, whose catalogs are comparable to Prince and Michael Jackson. You get what I'm saying about how the disparity,
right?
The board from the top to the bottom. Like I'm saying to say, it's like, have you heard it? Did you hear any shit? Like you see how John Lennon died, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right. Like when white idols die, it's usually like crazy fandom, a real drug overdose that can be founded, not like mysterious.
Like somebody who's had a drug problem for years and years and years.
Right. Like, I'm a hardcore Prince fan. I've heard nothing about this pill addiction until he was gone.
Yeah.
Oh, he was addicted the last 2 years. It's like, oh, is that right?
And
so the way that these circumstances get audited is what makes the appropriation so serious for Black people. Like, just look at the hole that I just went down. It makes me go down that hole when I just look at the separation of all things.
Then, because things feel unexplainable, so you have to make explanations for them. Or we don't create the explanations, but like humans are storytelling beings. We want to fill in those gaps somehow, and sometimes the most obvious answer is the right one.
Well, think about it like this. Who owned the Beatles catalog before he died?
Michael Jackson.
Okay, so when he dies, not only his catalog, but
I was going to bring that up too. Yeah.
Now, don't tell me that that's accidental, okay? Because you're like, he's literally in possession of two of the most 5 precious catalogs in the history of music.
Yep.
Period. Don't tell me that people don't murder for stuff like that. It's literally
it's billions of dollars. Yeah.
Billions. Let's say that again. Not millions, not hundreds of millions. We're talking about billions.
Bob Dylan sold his catalog for like 500 million or over $500 million, and Beatles and Michael Jackson's are worth more than that. I mean, I love Bob Dylan, but it's not.
Step up.
It's not.
It's just a step up. It's just a step up. It might be the only step up he may have to take.
There's not many.
Right. It might be the only step up he has to take, but it is still a step up. And the reality of the matter is that Bob Dylan shit is worth 500 million. I mean, I look at it like this. How many Beatles are there? $2 billion minimum. Michael Jackson, go ahead and put another one. So we're talking about $3 billion worth of money on a bare minimum that's getting, don't tell me that he's just addicted to painkillers in one day. Because, goddamn it, Keith Richards is still here. That's what I'm.
Keith Richards should be dead 35 times. And Keith Richards says he should be dead. Like he doesn't.
He jokes about how he should be dead as he inhales a cigarette in one puff.
And he's, 80, 75, something like that. Yeah.
So don't tell me people can't like, that these guys just got addicted later in life about performing and died. It's like, no, no, no. The body's not that fragile. Don't tell me that these guys didn't use drugs before and they used to it. Just
Yeah.
being honest. Like you gonna tell me Michael Jackson and Prince didn't do cocaine in the 70s and 80s? It's like you lie. You lie.
Yeah.
So don't act like their body is like, oh no, it was the shock from them never taking drugs. No, it wasn't. Like these motherfuckers did drugs. So and that's where appropriation takes us. And it could all just be so simple because Wildest Dreams is a dope ass record.
Yeah,
It's a great
and that's the biggest frustration for me is that it's not necessary. Like it's not necessary. Like you're a
no,
good enough singer and songwriter to not have to do this.
like the funny thing about appropriation, and we've talked about this. I've,
Hmm.
I've, I've mentioned these names to you before. Dr. Seneca Ball, Dr. Nicole Guillory. I took a African American diaspora class when I was getting my degree at KSU my senior year, and it was a hip hop
Hmm.
cultural reference class. It spoke to this appropriation. It played that Taylor Swift video as one of the monikers of
Hmm.
the appropriation, and Dr. Guillory's and Dr. Vault always made strong sentiments. One of the strongest sentiments that they made was like, and I think it was Dr. Vault that he said it is like, white people don't understand that it's like, well, because you are white, because you're in America, if your music's good, we're gonna hear it and end up liking it anyway. He's like, because we inherently like good music, and it's not like we're not gonna have access to your stuff.
Right.
It's like you don't have to appropriate anything. It's like either you're good or you're not. He's like, and this is where me and him touch base. I think he said something to like his mother loving Elvis, something like that. And I was thinking, yeah, my mom loves Elvis too. It's like, no, no, no. If you're dope and we get access to it, it's
Right.
like we'll give your props. Even this is before we're talking about what appropriation is, obviously with
Hmm.
Elvis. But for somebody like my mother who's 60 now, Elvis was just a talented ass white dude she had access to.
Right.
Move his hips when she was a kid. She's 10 years old. You know,
Yeah. Like this is awesome. Sure.
all beautiful man. He can dance his ass off. He sings like a brother.
Hmm.
Like a brother. It's like, the black girls like him too. It's like, no, you got full access to us in America. So it's like you don't have to appropriate anything. It's like, are you good enough? I mean, I like Madonna a lot. I've
Hmm.
always been a Madonna fan. I think bedtime stories with Take a Bow, written by
Hmm.
Baby and all that, and Secrets and all that. Oh, that's a wonderful,
Yeah.
wonderful put together album. The Like a Virgin album.
Hmm.
Yeah. Like a Prayer. It's
Yep.
one of my
Those are
songs.
good
Yeah.
songs. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's quality music, but it's like she didn't have to appropriate black culture. I mean, she slept with black men. That's not what I would call appropriate black
That's not
culture.
appropriation though. No. Yeah.
Right. That's not appropriation. It's like she was just being herself. The music was just dope.
Yeah.
I don't think she's good as Janet Jackson. I don't think the music is
No.
good,
No.
but
But
the music was dope, so I still liked her. I still
yeah.
listen to her stuff. I still have her music, what I mean, in my
Hmm.
catalog. So it's like she would be an example of somebody who didn't like appropriate. And look at her. She's not just a
She's
musical.
doing fine for herself. Yes.
Yeah, she's an icon. You know what I
Hmm.
mean?
The one
Like
name people. Yeah.
that's the one name person. It's like she can. When they were here, she's probably one of the few people that could probably just get them on the phone at the drop of a dime. She can call Prince, call Michael Jackson, be like, "Hey, what's up? What you doing?
Hmm.
I'm in London. Want to rave?" No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
One of the things that Taylor Swift does well, to coming back to her not needing to be an appropriator, is that she takes emotions that everybody recognizes them and draws a straight line from her to you. Like which is why it's not necessary, right? Like the appropriation is not necessary. Like she takes what how you know somebody's a good writer is, or one of the ways you know somebody's a good writer is if they can take their emotional state and use descriptive language in a way that takes that emotional state and delivers it directly to you. And she can do that better than most people can.
she can't. So I think one thing that gets understated about her, and I didn't realize it until I listened to this record. You know why I like this record?
Tell me.
She's got swag. She does have a little bit of swag, and has a guy like this is like her pickup line game a little bit, and it's dope. She's got game. She's got swag. It's like has a guy if a woman were to say that to me live and she were to walk away, I would chase her.
Which is exactly the situation that they're talking about, right? This is a
Right,
forbidden love song. I mean, everybody listening to this
right.
video knows the song, I assume, but like,
No, that's what I mean. She's got swag. It's like, no, no, no. That's the one I would go after, the one that would talk that way to me.
mhm.
You feel
Like
me?
no one has to know what we do, like that kind of. Let's
Yeah. Like, like
let's run away from all of this and get out of this town. And
the last part, like even if I don't see you, you know what I'm saying? Even
yeah,
the last part, it's like, oh, that's a pickup line.
mm-hmm. Yeah,
You could use that on a guy, and the guy would like totally be like with the shits, you know?
yeah.
Like use it.
Like she wants to be remembered in his wildest dreams, not
Right.
just his dreams.
No,
Like,
no, that's what I mean. She's like, that's I mean, you're married, so what type of woman you prefer doesn't matter at all.
the one
But
that I'm married to is the one I prefer. Yes.
right, correct. That's what I mean. Nice correction. But you know, men love mystery
Mm.
and appeal and a little bit of danger. The one that like the one that wants to stand out. Like you
Mm-hmm.
know, I've often told my a lot of my friends, it's like, well, you know, Ginger in Casino is bad, but nobody's saying no to Ginger. Like as a
Mm-hmm.
man, you can tell yourself whatever you want. You know what I'm saying? No,
But
she's all bad for me, and you know she's all bad for you. But then
yep,
she walks up to you and chooses you. It's like, no, 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 you're going with her.
yeah. I mean, and she uses the chorus of the song to incept the idea into his head, like to the other person's head. Like, say you'll remember me standing in a nice dress, staring at the sunset, red lips and rosy cheeks. Like she's not only saying that you're going to remember me in your wildest dreams, which we assume are not just going to involve somebody standing and watching the sunset, but also like placing that idea directly into your head. Because you know, if somebody paints the picture for you, what are you going to do when you fall asleep? It's going to come back, right?
Kind of talking like a guy. That's what
Mm-hmm.
I mean. She's got game.
Yeah.
She's got swag. She's kind of talking. That's kind of like how a guy talks.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's
I like
it's it's a great song. It
it.
really
Is.
is.
I really
Um,
enjoyed it.
the more I listen to the two songs, this one and Runaway, Wildest Dreams and Runaway, it almost feels like it's two people, like the man and the woman in the situation, telling the story of the situation from opposite perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is very clearly not the Taylor Swift song is not about a healthy romantic relationship. It's about a hot and heavy and a guy that's probably not great for her kind of thing. Not any different than Kanye saying that he goes for hood rats instead of having a good girl. Like, I mean, it's the same, it's the exact
Mm-hmm.
same thing. It's the
Yeah.
exact same thing.
The Kanye record is actually telling the Taylor Swift record, no, don't mess with a guy like me, though.
Exactly. Right.
Like, I know you're no good for me. And the Kanye record is like, you're absolutely right.
Exactly.
Are we done? Did you have any more notes about the Taylor Swift song before we get into the
I
Kanye song?
mean,
Kind of funny. I think the Kanye song, for once, probably the only time we're ever going to say this about anything dealing with Kanye, the Kanye song is probably a little bit easier to dissect and
yeah,
unpack.
it's pretty straightforward. There are lots of bridges between the two, and I didn't know like how much you wanted to talk about like their interpersonal drama or just keep it to the songs. So, I mean, they're obviously rivals whose fans also don't like each other either. I see lots of connective tissue between maybe not them personally, let's say their public personas.
Unpack that a little bit more. I want to
Oh,
hear that.
okay. So I said before, like I put the two songs together because they're more or less the same song, or they're
Yes.
the two different perspectives on the same situation, right? They could very well even be responding to each other, sort of like
I,
the male and female version of the same relationship.
yes. And I think for their time, because I didn't even realize this, you know, because I would say I'm part of what I would consider to be Kanye West's original core fan base.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a core that came after me,
Mm-hmm.
you know, around this my beautiful dark twisted fantasy
Yep.
time.
The
That's
kids
a
that I know that are now like 30 years old that
right.
were seniors in high school, and that's one of the other reasons I connected to because they were all in the high school at the same time. The girls who were obsessed with Taylor Swift and the boys that were loving Kanye, like they were all the same age essentially.
Right. And so the comparison might be is that for their generation and time period, like for that, I'd say 28 to 35 age gap that exists in music right now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, those two people probably have the biggest followings of that
Yep,
age bracket, wouldn't you
agreed.
say?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that's definitely where their paths cross,
Mm-hmm.
because like Beyonce's another thing. And I think Beyonce's following because of Destiny's Child is before that.
It predates that and it goes after it too, I think.
It predates and exceeds, correct.
Yeah.
And so these two are probably the biggest stars. I told you, I don't know if I've told you this, like when I went to the Donda listening event last year here in Atlanta,
Mm-hmm.
there was a kid, and I say a kid because he had to have been at least 10 to 15 years younger than me. He just
Mm-hmm.
looked pretty young, but he was in this demographic, probably we're talking about maybe a little bit younger.
Mm-hmm.
And he held his phone like this the entire time to record every single thing. He had like one of those super frequency recording apps
Okay.
that was on the vibrations as it was recording and had like his little power charger thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I watched this man sit like this for 4 hours standing to record all of Donda. And I was just like,
That's
oh,
dedication.
I was like, oh, I love Ye. I've never loved Ye like that.
Mm-hmm. It's
Like
different.
that's
And there are people who love Taylor Swift like that too. Like it's like there's a level of obsession that you don't see with a ton of other artists.
I didn't realize that, I mean, just for me, because of my age bracket and demographic, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
well, I've only seen people do stuff like that for a few artists. We've already named all of them,
I was about
though.
to say
Prince,
Elvis.
Michael
Yeah.
Jackson,
Yeah.
Elvis,
That's a short list.
Janet Jackson, and Madonna on the female
Mm-hmm.
side.
Yep.
End of list. So to see some of the Taylor Swift and Kanye fan the first time, it's like, oh, is that who y'all are for this time? And to people, yes. For us, hell no.
No. Like I can appreciate the music and the music is good, but it's not like that. Like it's not the same.
I'll tell you what, I'll give you a little teaser because of what today is. Later on in this show, not in this show, later on when I do the other show, when I do According to Hip Hop, today, it's Friday. I'm going to go ahead and date
Mm-hmm.
this. It's Friday,
Right.
October 4th. We're going to be having a little producer discussion because I've found that out, not found out, it's just always been some things floating around Dr. Dre.
Mm-hmm.
And then Kanye West, this is what I mean about how big he is. Well, he's one of the best rappers of all time, but he might be the best hip hop producer of all time, too.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like he's good at both, but he's the best. Well, no, if he's not the best producer, he's like certainly one of the very best.
Yeah,
Even I know that.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that's very, very high up on that list as a producer. And so his talents are wide ranging. And then it's like, I was thinking about all the hit records that he has as an artist and all the hit records he has as a producer. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh no, I'm like, the fandom does make sense. And this is what I mean is what happens when you become a fan of somebody who's about the same age as you, or only a couple of years older, as you become a man,
Mm-hmm.
you start to audit them as people a little differently.
Right.
It's not the music anymore. And so I realized when I was standing next to that guy, it's like, oh, Kanye's been getting on my fucking nerves. Like Kanye, the person, is getting
Yeah.
on Cooper, the grown man's nerves some because it's like, I know why he loves him that way. And there's some validity to it when you go back and listen to the music. Like it's funny that part of the reason why I wanted to do Runaway,
Mm-hmm.
when you would like, I know you sent me this and you picked this pair, but part of the reason why I chose it is I was listening to My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy a couple of days ago, and I'm like, hey, I'm fucking brilliant. It's the
It's
best modern rap
great.
album.
Yeah, it's really, really good.
Best modern rap album that's come out in the last 15 years. Came out in 2010, right? It's the best rap album of the last 15 years, period. And Runaway is a wonderful record. This is the Kanye that you can love because he's so blatantly and flagrantly honest with himself
Mm-hmm.
and his arrogance and his detractions, his
Mm-hmm.
cons instead of his pros, that it's hard not to love him. On the back end of this, Pusha T is actually, who is on this record,
Mm-hmm.
is in town tonight. And I'm going to see him when the According to Hip Hop podcast is over because he's actually closer to my side of town. Yeah, where he's performing at is literally like 10 miles from my house.
Oh, nice.
Right. So I'm headed to see him tonight, but they on this record are brilliant. This was a coming out party for Pusha T, and I think this is the last time that the generation I know grew up on Kanye saw Kanye the solo artist that we know.
Okay.
Yeah, like you see him on Watch the Throne, but
Hmm.
this is the guy. This is the
Right.
last time that guy. Like
This
on a
is the
big
college
stage.
dropout guy. Yeah.
Yeah,
The
this is the guy from the college dropout that you can still see. And when I mean this is the guy and this is the record, I mean down to how he did the video, down
mhm.
to the verbiage, down to the hook. It's like, no, no, no. That's still the Kanye that the first core fan base adored and loved. Like he's still
Yeah.
there and breathing on this record. And like I said, the record is very, very simple. Run away as fast as you can. You know,
Hmm.
like what do he say? Let's have a toast to the douchebags. Let's have a toast
Toast
for
to
the
the assholes. Yeah.
like. This used to be my theme music. This used to be my theme song when I used to manage downtown
Mm.
because like I knew so many guys, myself included, that like related to this. It's like yeah, because I was the guy. I was the jerk off that would never take work off.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
I see
So
what you're saying. Yeah.
he's speaking to a lot of different guys. Every guy who
Hmm.
related to this record. You know what I mean? Like there's a guys that, like men know who they are.
Yeah.
They try to hide it and lie to women, but we know. So when he's saying let's have a toast for the douchebag, let's have a toast for the assholes,
Yep.
let's have a toast for the scumbags, every one of them that I know, let's have a toast for the jerk offs and never take work off. And he's like literally gives them a solution. It's like he's making statements and sentiments, and he like comes up with a solution. Baby, I got a plan. Run away as fast as you can. And then he goes into his verse. You know, she found pictures in my email. I sent this picture of a chick in my dick. It's like that's the guy I love. It's like no rapper at that time was gonna be that honest with you because
He's got a
Tupac
sense of humor about it too. Like,
he does. Well, no, he's like, you know, and he literally says, and this is what I mean, because I relate to this too. Andrew, I still relate to this too at 41 years old. I don't know what it is with females, but I ain't too good at that shit.
yep. Yeah.
You know, it's simple. It's like, how can you not, as a man,
You recognize that.
well, I mean, Andrew, I mean, seriously, if you've been a black man in Atlanta, it's like, well, I don't know how you can't understand that sentiment. Like the whole first part of that song,
Yeah.
it's like, I know every guy like that, been that guy, you
Hmm.
know, still dealing with being some of that guy. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
every time, like think about this, Andrew. Almost every time when you talk to me, it's like, what am I doing? It's like, well, I'm either with the side or what coming from work. You
Hmm.
know,
Exactly.
part of the reason why my relationships have failed is because you know I'm addicted to work and women like attention.
Hmm.
I'm addicted to according to hip hop. I'm addicted to building this. I'm addicted to making sure my daughter has a life I didn't have. You know, my relationships with women suffer because of it. You
Yeah.
know, so it's like that's what he's saying. He's saying, no, 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 you can just run away from all that shit. You know,
You don't need this. Yeah.
you don't have to put up with me. You know,
And the way you're describing this is beautiful because I think like this is the old white man perspective, but like so I can't speak to it directly, but it strikes me that what you're describing is what Taylor Swift does to a lot of women of that age too. Like she is describing like their emotional like their ways they interact with the world, I guess.
yeah,
In much the same way that Kanye is
some
here.
emotional telekinesis going
Yeah,
on. You know what I mean?
exactly.
We're channeling that
They're like, I
energy.
know that. I have been that person. I recognize that.
I
If
can
it's not
tap.
me, it's my friend. If it's whatever,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. You know, and you know, one of the beautiful things about the record is that well, Kanye kind of makes it so that the everyday working man can relate to it, but it's
Mm-hmm.
like every man can relate to it, and so you know, Pusha T kind of comes with the hustlers ethos on here of you know of how, quite frankly, a man with money treats a woman, you know what I'm saying, that he's
Mm-hmm.
being unfaithful to. You know, he's very cold and very callous on the record. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And it's kind of different because you can tell that it's almost like Kanye going through a breakup and so is Pusha T, but the way they're dealing with the breakup is totally different. You
right.
know,
Yeah.
like Pusha T is pretty much telling her it's like, you know,
Well,
you can deal with it, or I can find somebody as beautiful as you to replace you. These are the games we play. Like you knew who you were dealing with and
yeah.
what type of that I was living. You wanted Louis Vuitton loafers, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You wanted new luggage
And you
sets.
got to take all of it, right? I mean, if you're going
Yeah,
to have
yeah,
this,
yeah,
you have to have both parts.
yeah.
Like,
You're
I mean,
gonna take.
even yeah, like in their Taylor Swift songs that say like like my exes all talk shit about me, and they all say I'm crazy, right? Like, so it's this is not speaking to her personality because I don't know her at all, but like it's very much the same ethos. Like if you want red lips and rosy cheeks, staring at the sunset, you also have to take the crazy person. Like you have to have both of those things,
Well,
and
how
not
about
you can't pick one.
you know what? Here's what's beautiful about Pusha T's verse on there, I'm just gonna say it simply because I don't know how to explain it. He's really talking to women and explaining. It's like, no, all of you have a little gold digger in you. You just haven't dealt with a man that has that much money yet.
Mm.
That's what he's really saying. Like he has a bar in there where he says, you can't blame them. They ain't never seen Versace sofas. As in,
Oh.
like, you blame them for wanting to take your place, but he's also putting her in her place, as in, like, well, you're here because you're sitting on this Versace sofa. You wouldn't be here if this sofa wasn't Versace, if the other females didn't have access to it. So who are you?
Mm-hmm. You're just
Like,
one who was here first. Yeah.
you were here first. You're no different than those other women who you're calling gold diggers who I'm cheating with that you think want to take your place. It's like, well, how did you get in this place with a man like me anyway?
Again, none of these relationships in either of these songs are particularly healthy or positive. Like that's not the point of the songs, right? It's just to show a different part or like a true part, right? Like that everybody has darker sides too, right? Or things that you're perhaps less proud of that are your beautiful dark twisted fantasies or something like there are things that most people wouldn't talk about, but they are both are.
Listen to this. So let's unpack Pusha T's verse.
Okay.
He says 24/7, 365. Pussy stays on my mind. You see the honesty of this record?
Mm-hmm.
That's what's beautiful about this record. Both of them are being honest, and it's almost honest to the point. And this is what I mean about this record. It's a shot at the women too, because women always say, I want a man to be what? Honest with me. Tell me the
Okay, you sure?
welcome to the honesty. Listen, I did it. All right, I admit it. Now pick your best move. You could leave or live with it. He goes, Ichabod Crane. This is literary device stuff with that motherfucking top off. Split and go where? He's saying, you're going to go where? Where are you going? Because then he talks about the lifestyle that he's gotten her used to living. Back to wearing knockoffs. Ha, knock it off. Neiman's, shop it off. As in, you got a problem. Any other time you've had a problem, you've been shopping it off on my Neiman's card. Let's not make this situation any different. He's being cold and callous with her. It's like, oh, let's not act like you're just here for me. This is a business transaction. Let's talk over my ties. Waitress, top it off.
Yep.
He's speaking to a certain type of lifestyle that she's accustomed to living. That's really his lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
That's why he's saying back to wearing knockoff.
You're getting something out of this too, right?
Yeah.
Not just me.
This is what hoes like vultures want to fly in your Freddie loafers. You can't blame them. They ain't never seen Versace sofas. Every bag, every blouse, every bracelet comes with a price tag. Baby, face it. Oh, you want to talk about some honesty? Now, how many women do you know that can really deal with the honesty that's in this record? And that's what I mean about Pusha T's part is really bringing up the fact it's like, oh, no, no, no. Women might be inherently the same about some things, the way men are inherently the same about some things. It's like, oh no, plenty of women would just want to slide right into your position and they won't think that they're a gold digger either. And it says you should leave if you can't accept the basics. Plenty bitches in this baller nigga matrix. Invisible set, right. Invisible sets, the Rolex is faceless. I'm just young, rich, and tasteless. Honesty.
Give it up for the douchebags, right? I mean, it's the same.
He's the asshole that Kanye's talking about. Like the asshole comes out and talks some asshole shit, but it's like, how much of an asshole is he really being?
Mm-hmm.
You have to ask yourself that. It's like, is he not telling the truth? Because he's speaking to certain things, the materialistic side of it, not like it's at his benefit. Almost it's like, well, that's at your benefit. That's how you got here.
Right. The other side of that, of course, is that you can tell the truth and still be an asshole, right? Like it's the two things are not mutually exclusive. I mean, you can be an asshole and lie to people too, but you can also be um brutally honest to somebody's face and say things in an asshole way
I
too.
think no, I think the real assholes are usually the people who tell the truth, because
Mm-hmm.
it hurts people's feelings.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
truth really does hurt, you know. So
Yeah.
this is like one of those beautifully wounded records, and my beautiful dark twisted fantasy is full of those records. This might be my favorite pairing that we've done so far.
Oh, it's one of those that jumped out at me. Like, because
Quality,
again, like I said, I started the idea with I wanted to put one of his songs and one of her songs together, and I love Wildest Dreams. Like when I used to play in coffee shops, I would play that song. Like I could, like it's a great song,
no, great record.
and
Yeah.
and it's like this. So I was just looking down like the bigger hits that Kanye had, and I was like, actually, this is very very much the same kind of
Well,
argument.
I'm going to say something dangerous here. So I went to a Braves game with some friends and some former coworkers earlier this year. We went to a couple of barbecues after, but one of the barbecues when somebody was actually playing R. Kelly, and some of the women looked around. It was like, hey, I thought we kind of like put that on pause, like
Mm-hmm.
no R. Kelly at the barbecue anymore. Some of the
Okay.
women were like, what the fuck is going on? And I felt them. And then
Right.
I thought, and I tried to think about it on a deeper level. It's like, how many other people have committed different atrocities that we have given like a pass to? It's like, I know stories like, there's stories about how Miles Davis used to just brutally beat his wife, Kendrick.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? He's a big abuser.
Yeah.
A big, big abuser. I don't hear anybody not playing bitches brew because Miles Davis used to beat the shit out of his wife.
Yeah, and that's we have that conversation in classes all the time, and we will have we'll have it now, and we'll have it repeatedly in the future too.
Right.
Like,
Right.
how can you separate the
Right.
music from,
Right.
because there's lots of, like you said, R. Kelly is a terrible human being, but also he's clearly not the only terrible human being.
Right.
So, and
Well, this
remix
is
to
what I
Ignition, Hot and Fresh Out the Kitchen. That's a good song, man. Like
meant.
that's a good song.
Both
So
both versions of Ignition,
yeah,
Andrew.
exactly.
Regular and remix, the classics. But here's what I'm saying to say that is that when blacks and proud blacks such as myself, when we discuss appropriation,
Mm-hmm.
how much are we supposed to ride for this appropriation? You get what I'm saying? Is like, because I just realized and this is what I mean, this is kind of important for me because it gave me something to think about on the side. It's like, well, I love hearing good music and hearing all good music. And about my stances on appropriation, I haven't listened to Taylor Swift in about pretty much since I had that conversation with my daughter when my daughter
Mm-hmm.
was about 10 or 11. So it's been about 4 or 5 years since I've
Okay.
literally listened to any Taylor Swift at all. How fair is that when there is like still a little bit of R. Kelly left in my catalog? I had a real bad day a few years ago and just deleted all his shit. Like,
Yeah.
I have a daughter and a niece who I love. Like, I mean, it'd just be hard some days. They're 15.
Understood. No, no, man.
They're 15 and
His
16.
behavior is inexcusable, obviously.
Right. But then just to bring up the Miles Davis thing, the Jerry Lee Lewis thing. You get what I'm saying? The
R.
Elvis,
Kelly is clearly not the only person.
Elvis and Priscilla. Priscilla was younger than my daughter when he married her. My daughter's 15. Like,
Yeah.
so I'm just wondering, it's like, did I just cut Taylor Swift off for like 5 or 6 years when I know, like, I mean, I just spoke positively about her. I was like, did I just cut her water off for 5 or 6 years on a stance that I'm not sure that we're even clear about like we need to be? You get what I'm saying? Because
It's
it's
a
like,
really hard line to draw. It
it
really
is. But
is.
what I'm saying is that when you start drawing lines on what people are doing on the other side, and this is the Southerner in me, this is my grandfather in me. Well, you might want to tend to your own yard.
Yep.
Make sure that it's clean before you go over there and talking about somebody else's yard and how messy it is. And that's what I mean about the appropriation and how maybe we need to be auditing some of our own characters in our own sphere
Mm-hmm.
first, which is why I bring up Miles Davis and R. Kelly at the same time.
Yep.
To give an example. Because it's like, oh no, I play me. There's a version, because Prince isn't here, Andrew, a remastered version with unreleased songs from Sign of the Times now exists, which really pisses me off that I have access to it. There's a Miles Davis Prince song on there. One of the first things that I did when it came out is I ran to the Prince and Miles song because it's Prince and Miles Davis.
Of course, yeah. They're icons.
But you get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I just put Taylor
You still
Swift
want to
on.
hear it.
Right, hold on,
Mhm.
hold on. Taylor Swift ain't beating nobody's ass out here committing domestic violence.
No.
You know what I mean? She was probably told by her record label to do some things when she was younger and more immature and more impressionable. And this is what I mean about auditing these things. I ran to Miles Davis in that Prince song in a heartbeat, knowing who Miles Davis is as a man. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I cut a very, very talented artist off because she is white, because she did some culturally appropriate things in her prime.
Mm-hmm.
And we just have to be careful about those things because it's like, well, I'm not even sure anymore at 41 why I drew that line at 34. I believe it was.
Yeah.
No, I was 34 when that happened. Yeah. I'm not
Okay.
even sure like how defined that line is now. Because I'm not sure if we've done a good job of defining it. And I say
Yeah.
we as in my community, black community.
Right.
So,
It's
you
a
know,
hard line to define. That's not to defend or whatever. Like it's just it's a tough because we all love what we love. Like and just because and we've said this before too, like you you can love um music and, but it's really hard to separate the music from the person like and can you look at music independent of the people like can you listen to stuff and still not and still have that be like I'm just listening to the music. I'm not like condoning their behavior. Like
right.
where are the it's a hard
Because
it's a
and this is what I
matrix.
the hard it is. Because here's the thing about it. Oh, I listen to rappers that have done some horrible things.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to kind of technically for part of my living now.
Mm-hmm.
You feel me?
Yeah.
Like these guys have done things like, to people and there's a lot of stuff that comes with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we have to be careful. And then even further that if you just look in the sphere of, and this is what I mean about auditing it properly, well, you know, and you're familiar, well, Malcolm Little and Malcolm X were two different people.
Mm-hmm.
There's 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 Malcolm Little, the pimp, the hustler, the dealer, the user, the con artist, the numbers man. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
There's that guy. There's Detroit Red, and then there's Brother Malcolm, and
Yeah.
that comes with time. I'm not talking about time in prison. That comes with time,
Like yeah, years.
years.
Mm-hmm.
And so what what I'm saying is that well, I can't be holding Taylor Swift hostage for something she did when she was like what 19,
19 or
20.
20, yeah. Yeah.
I don't know how fair that is because it's like, well, I don't hold Brother Malcolm hostage for what he was doing when he was 19 or 20. Now, do I?
Yeah.
I hold
Everybody
him at,
does stupid shit when they're 19 and 20
right.
like
I mean, I'm a Christian, but I probably look up to him more than I look up to anybody, you know what I'm saying,
mm-hmm.
idol wise growing up. So it's like, this is what I mean about auditing this more as we get older, as I become more of a man and start looking at things. It's like, because I was listening to Wildest Dreams today, I was like, I've been fucking
Yeah.
up.
It's a good song. It is it's just it's a good song.
No, but she makes good music. And I
Yeah.
can remember her making good music because I can remember asking my daughter 5 or 6, why the hell are you listening to it? She's like, it's good, Daddy. Listen.
And you're like, oh yeah,
I'm
it
like, oh,
is. It
like
is
it is good.
actually.
Like, oh, it's like as you were back downstairs.
Yeah. Like,
So, yeah. You got any other notes?
like the just to connect that, like you can and they both have Kanye and Taylor both have. I guess you'd think of them as simple lyrics that are not like
I think the
super
I think
complex.
the way that you said it earlier about Taylor, I was actually thinking that applies to Kanye too.
Mm-hmm.
Straight through.
I always find something wrong. You've been putting up with my shit just way too long. I'm so gifted at finding what I don't like the most. Like that. That could be a Taylor Swift song.
But it's like you said,
It
it's
goes
here through.
straight from
It's
here to there. Yep.
Yeah, it's like it's coming out of his heart straight to yours. She does the
Mm-hmm.
same thing. Yes.
Yeah.
That's why I was like, this might be the best comparison because it's like they because of what they went through personally,
Mm-hmm.
publicly,
Yeah.
comparing them, it's like, well, you really don't see how much they have in common
Yeah.
until you really put them together musically. And it's
I
like,
wrote there they are essentially the same person. They're Kardashians. They have an
right,
eye for the spectacle. They're no publicity is bad publicity people. And obviously they both have relationships with the Kardashian, like the actual Kardashians too. But like
yes,
they appreciate the spectacle, I think. Um, or at the very least know how useful the spectacle is.
so how I gotta love the irony that it's like Kanye's wonder twin in music might be Taylor Swift.
Yeah,
You have
and that's the thing. That was what occurred to me the more I was listening to this. And I was like, this is the same person. I mean,
yeah.
it's opposite ends of the spectrum, but like it's the same. They're saying the same thing.
And they've got the same age demographic fan base too. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
Even though he's older, the demographic that follows him,
It's
because
the same one.
same ones. It's the same ones, you know.
Yeah.
Because it's like also too, you know, and this is what I mean. They both have that same demographic. They have that demographic after because like Kanye is one of those people my daughter knows where it's like, what did he do this time, Daddy? It's
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Yes. He's
damn it. It's like, hey, Kanye.
like, can you
Like,
just? It's the same thing you say about Taylor. Like, can you just make the music, man?
just make
Just
the
just
music
do just do the music. Don't do
right.
all this other
You know,
Trump shit. Like,
right. Because that's
just
to remind her, it's like, you know, we used to talk about his music like all the time, right? She'd
yeah.
be like, sure you did that. Sure.
Like,
Making my,
yeah, like you don't. She's your child, like,
making my
but
life. But she knows Taylor Swift the artist more than she knows Kanye the artist.
mhm, yeah.
He's always in the news for some shit. But yeah, that's a good way to end it though. Wonder Twins, Taylor and Ye.
It's perfect.